Okay, well, hello everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. We are talking to Dorri Olds on Zooming In with Professor Smith, and I'm going to go ahead and attempt to read Dorri's bio because it's quite impressive, and then we'll get into it with her, okay? Dorri Olds is an award-winning freelance writer and graphic designer whose work appears in the New York Times, Marie Claire, Women's Day, The Fix, Ravishly, The Temper, Forward, Tablet, and more. She has sold over 1,000 articles, and her short stories were selected for 8 book anthologies. This year, she was interviewed for the CUNY textbook this year she was interviewed for the CUNY textbook for their course on victimology. Did I say that right, Dorri? Okay. Dorri is a frequent speaker at writing and social media events, including American Society of Journalists and Authors, their annual writing conference in New York, the National Publicity Summit, CUNY's, just CUNY, sorry. I'm used to saying SUNY, so whenever I see the C, I gotta make sure I say CUNY, City University of New York, Book Expo America, and is a member of RAIN for their Speakers Bureau. And RAIN, just so you know, stands for Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Dorri has been a guest on CBS, CNN's Dr. Drew in New York 1, and ABC's 7 on Your Side. In addition to TV and video, she has been interviewed for podcasts, radio articles, in print and online. And she even has her own IMDb page. Woo woo, okay. Her essay for the Times, the New York Times, Defriending My Rapist, has become required reading for the CUNY victimology class and a Media Bistro essay class. In addition, she writes about movies and interviews A-list celebrities. These include Jodie Foster, Ryan Gosling, Michael K. Williams, Julianne Moore, Kirsten Dunst, Steven Spielberg, and many more. Wow. That's a lot, Dorri, and I mean, I love the many more because it's like, okay, well, who else could there be, right? But I guess there could be a lot more. So before we get started, Dorri, I just want to mention to the students and anyone who might be watching this interview that the conversation might, talk about rape. It might not, but just because that was, one of your, that's how I came to know you, actually, was from that piece in the New York Times. So I just want to give any of our viewers the opportunity to, fast forward or step out of the room or whatever, if that topic might be a little bit difficult for them, And again, it's not to say that we will, but I just thought, since you and I have that in common, that might come up. So I just wanted to say that. But now we can go ahead and get into the fun stuff. So, Dorri, the mic is yours. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you are now. How did you break into media?
Hi, nice to meet everybody. Who I am. I guess I'm a survivor. I'm a sober addict now. You're still an addict because the thoughts, but I'm sober, and I survived so much. I was very self-destructive and also had bad judgment, and drugs don't help. But anyway, so it's kind of amazing that I ended up like doing what I want to do. As a kid, I sat in my room with my dog by my side, and I drew and I wrote stories, and I made little like connected dots, puzzles and stuff. And here I am, an adult, and I sit with my dog and I draw, I write, and so it's like I'm doing what is natural to me. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, you mentioned that you were self-destructive. I mean, tell us a little bit more about that, and is that what started you on your path to writing, or how did that come about?
No, I mean, I was writing, I think, since I popped out of my mom. As soon as I could write, I wrote. And my mom said, as far as drawing and painting and all that came, She said I would, when I ran out of paper, I would draw on with markers on my belly. So, I'm just like naturally a creative person. And I think it's in my genes. There's a lot of creative people. There's also, some addiction and there's some mental illness, like suicidal tendencies in my family. So the first piece I think I had published was like 8th grade, and it made it in from a contest. And then, but I mostly was an artist, a painter. If you go to, it's a lot. I do a lot. I'm currently in the process of updating my website. If there are any great WordPress programmers out there, let me know. I know young people are great. They grew up with this shit.
They did.
And I'm unhappy with the programmers, and I don't have time because it's not a bad thing. I'm always busy with deadlines. So, but you can go to my site. Just remember my name is spelled with 2 R's. And also on Facebook, I have a lot of my art on Facebook. If you look in the, I guess Facebook is for old people now, but anyway, I got into social media early. I used to do web design for a long time. From the early to mid 90s, I was on computer. So I had a leg up, I skipped 2 grades in school, and I rebelled and did barely nothing, and I just got A+. I guess it's bad to tell students, but I would put if I had to do a book, write an essay about a book, I would put my finger in the book. Since grade school, I would just put my finger in the book, read the spread, come up with the angle of the essay, write it, boom. I don't know. I don't take credit for all of this because I think it's in my genes. A lot of smart people, a lot of artists, a lot of writers. So.
But that's awesome. If a student can do that and get away with it, more power to them. You know what I mean?
Right. And about starting early in computers, when I was doing web design, it was great because people saw me adults with careers, they wanted a website, and they thought of me as magical, like a wizard, because nobody knew how to do it. And now, I quit after 16 years of web design. I gave myself a birthday present and I quit web design. I was tired of people saying, well, I could do it myself for free. And I'd be like, okay, go at it, have at it. The thing is when you're a trained designer who has studied color theory and how people see a web page and how their eye scans it. And I've studied and I graduated from Parsons. I went on to take some graduate courses in computer and, digital art and New School for, all the Adobe programs, Illustrator, Photoshop. So, if you want to do something yourself, that's fine. But, you get what you pay for. So if you pay nothing,
So right. I think I actually tried to talk you into doing my webpage a couple of times, and you're like, "No, Sharisse, I don't do that anymore. Please, Dorri." But I get it. It is. If you studied it and you really know what you're doing, then yeah, it's a little bit different than maybe going on GoDaddy and kind of working through something yourself. And you can tell the quality of the work on someone's webpage. So. You're definitely worth, you definitely should be paid what you're worth. And if you have clients that tend to think, well, it's not that big of a deal, I can do it, then like you said, let them do it, So
one more thing about that.
Yeah.
A lot of people who make they go to Squarespace, they make their own site. Mm-hmm. A lot of them don't understand the advantages of WordPress. And I think there's a new, similar to WordPress thing. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm on WordPress, and there's a program called Yoast. You can get the free version or the pro version. I got the pro version after trying out the free version. And it tells you everything in the back end of WordPress of how to be found. So if you Google my name, it just pops up everywhere. I'm all over the web. And it's because of knowing search engine optimization, knowing keywords. And you guys grew up with all that, but a lot of people don't know to apply it to their site. They don't take the time. But if they're not promoting themselves, it's kind of like saying, you know, nobody's going to find me because I don't care. You know what I mean?
Right.
So promotion is important with the competitive world we live in, you know?
Well, you know what, that kind of brings me to a question I was going to save for a little bit later, but since we're here, so do you think having the graphic, you know, being a graphic designer as well as what you studied for web design, has that, well, obviously it's helped you in your writing career, right? I mean, but how much more of an edge do you think you had or have because you have that additional knowledge?
Part of it is chutzpah, you know, if you're not Jewish, like you got, well, I can't.
Everybody knows what that means, Dorri.
You're a badass. Anyway, so my dad, to tell you the truth, my dad was a president of 2 radio stations, and you know, it was a while back. It was WBLS and WRBR, and he had worked himself up. He grew up so poor that, you know, for the holidays he'd get underwear, pair of underwear, like they ate potatoes, you know. And so he really worked himself up, and he said the way you get into a good job is bullshit, and get in, my dad, and get in, and then in a week you'll be fired because it'll be obvious you don't know what you're doing. But in that week, you'll watch, you'll learn, you'll hear the words, you go home, you look up those, well, it wasn't computer then, but like you go to the library back then and you look up what those words are. And I did that with each job, even waitressing. You know, oh yeah, I've been a waitress for years and I don't know what I was doing. And like, I would just, you know, it's maybe not, I don't know about ethical. It's kind of runs along the same lines as like paying your taxes or something, like reporting everything. It's like, or calling in sick for some big thing, you know, sometimes you fudge a little, but it really worked because he was right. I did get let go quickly, or I learned enough to quit and get a better job.
Right.
So I started young. I graduated, I'm 60. Can't believe it. Turned 60 in December. And I, yeah, 60 is the new 20, I guess. And so I graduated in 85 from Parsons. I'd taken a 2-year leave of absence to become a rock star.
Okay.
My poor parents, they said, okay, but you know, we're not gonna help support you. So I became a waitress, and I, you know, went on auditions, but then I realized life is hard, becoming a rock star, you know, unless you have an advantage, and I didn't, but I do have an advantage in art and writing because I've done it my whole life. And so I went back to Parsons and I finished up, got the BFA, and then my dream was to illustrate album covers, but they'd already turned to photographs. Okay. You know, like, I wasn't in the 60s. I was born 61, so I missed the whole 60s thing, but in the 60s there were gorgeous album covers, illustration, beautiful. So then I thought children's books, but both of those things are so competitive, so low paying, that I figured, oh, maybe I should be a graphic designer. I don't know. I stayed like with my fingers on the pulse of culture. And there was much more money in graphic design than in painting. And the same with, you know, writing. I started out with travel writing, where they send you on press trips. And I bet they still do. It was for Resident Magazine. And they would send you on these amazing press trips, but you had to write about it all. So they would be like $5,000 trips if you had to pay. And you would be like, they would suck up all the time. Like you'd go for a massage, you'd go for a 5-star restaurant, you went to see clubs and museums. And then you had to write about it. And then, you know, that was the deal. And so I did that for, I'd say, about 1.5 years until I missed my husband and my dog so much. I didn't want to go anymore. They would be like, you know, sometimes 1 or 2 week trips. And I got sick of it.
Well, I remember, I don't know if it's so much a thing now, but I do remember for a while travel writing was really big. I know there were a lot of courses for travel writing. I mean, it seemed like, you know, even for me personally, I had considered it for a brief time, but I mean, I couldn't because I always had, you know, kids. But I wonder if it's so much now. I mean, pre-COVID, you know, if that's still something that magazines are doing and paying pretty nicely for.
I'm sorry.
Restaurant, at least here in New York, in Manhattan, restaurants are opening up. Some theater is opening up. Movie theaters have been open for a while now. And, you know, you got to be careful. I mean, I had, you know, I hope everybody got their shots and their booster and wears masks, you know. I find it funny that people who run around with guns talking tough are afraid of a little mask, you know. I mean, it's so silly. And I've been careful because my mom is 88 and so she's vulnerable, but she didn't take it seriously. Other people didn't take it seriously. Even Sue, we know is the same person.
Right.
We, like, when it just started, we were in a deli and she handed money to the cashier, and when you know, and then she was going to eat. I said, "You can't eat. You have to wait till you get home and wash your hands and wash your face," you know. And she didn't believe me, but I was like really adamant, so she did. And now here it is, like, you know, about 2 years later than that. And the world is kind of opening up. I don't know exactly what to do. But for a while, I know people have been traveling. I don't think you want to go to Ukraine or Russia right now, but.
Well, no, definitely not. But I mean, I guess I was just thinking, you know, in terms of, you know, before COVID, if there were still as many opportunities for travel writing, kind of like in the way that you described, or maybe it became more competitive because the word got out, like, this is a sweet gig, they're paying you, you get to see all these things, you know, get to have all this free stuff, and all you got to do is write about it. So I was just curious more than anything else if you knew that that was still kind of a thing, or if maybe that's kind of, you know, lessened a bit. Obviously because of COVID, you know, they had to stop.
Well,
but
you know,
If it isn't back now, it will be back. And it doesn't, the one thing that was important about me doing that travel writing at the time was that it was a way to get beautiful clips, you know, like now you would send out PDFs, you know, print magazines do a lot of beautiful layouts, but even just having outlets. Now it's really sad that a lot of writers aren't being paid or paid very little. So but at the beginning, you need something to show, and it's really worth getting like at least 3 pieces that you've donated to a nice site, and don't run around telling people I didn't get paid. They don't know. And each time you get a little more work, and pretty soon you'll be sitting here being interviewed and telling somebody else how to do it.
well, I think that's what we call, what did we call that when I first was at the new school? When you're basically
free, but you're building up your clicks, right? I mean, you're just trying to get your work out there. You're trying to be seen. You're trying to get your name out there. Obviously, the publication that you have the clip in, hopefully it's reputable, you know what I mean? So that you're basically kind of vetting yourself so that next publication or editor or whoever will take a chance on you, essentially, right? I mean, that's
right. And the more you work on like online outlets, which are, you know, there's tons of them, promote your stuff like crazy on social media, all social media. Just promote yourself, start a video channel if you haven't already. You know, become known for one thing if you want, or not. Decide, like, you can feel out different avenues. Like I started with travel writing, then I got into writing pop culture, and you know, sometimes the outlets folded or someone took over that you didn't like, different editor, or editors bring their own people, so they're not using you as much, so you move on. And there's like so many places to move on to. Then when I wrote for The Fix, that's a dictionary recovery site. It was so fun. It was so easy. I'd send like one sentence to my editor and she was like, yes. But then they hit hard times, so they, you know, they can't pay writers anymore. So it's like I had to, once in a while, if I want to write something, I'll donate it, just because I really love my editor there, and it wasn't her fault, and she felt terrible about it.
right.
So, Yeah.
So that kind of goes back to what we've been talking about throughout the semester is, you know, kind of write what you know, right? Or at least start off writing what you know, because it's going to come a little bit easier for you. Like you said, you threw out a sentence and your editor's like, yeah, write that. So I think that's a good tip and good advice. I wanted to back up just a little bit because I'm not sure that everyone, I know you've mentioned Parsons a few times. I don't know if everyone would know what Parsons is, where Parsons is. I don't know if we mentioned that you were in New York City. And have you always lived in New York City? Are you a native?
We're in Manhattan on the Upper West Side.
Okay.
We moved around a little. We left Manhattan, that apartment in Manhattan. My parents wish they'd have bought it then, but they didn't know. Oh my God, it was a big apartment. Anyway, so we left, and then my dad was in radio, so he was transferred to better and better jobs. And then we got back and he got a job in Woodside with RL and WBLS. WWRL was a soul station. WBLS was pure jazz then. I think it went to country or something. But anyway, so it was so we lived in Long Island, which because of Woodside is so close. So we went into Manhattan all the time. It was, you know, quick jump. And then I started sneaking into the city with my friends around. I got into a lot of trouble. I became a rebel, you know, sneaky. And, you know, the drugs, like I smoked my first joint at 11 and then I started drinking and drugging. And by 13, I was just like, as soon as I got my period, I thought I'm a woman now. Nobody can tell me what to do. And oh man, I got in so much trouble with that attitude, you know. If I don't have to listen to the common sense of my parents. So I would go into the city and I ran away when I was 15 to Greenwich Village, fell in love with Greenwich Village. Thank goodness I got caught. Oh my goodness. Really, really good that I got caught. I had, oh, it was terrible. It's another story. You can read my essays. And then, so I lived in McDougal Street between Bleecker and 3rd, which is a block away from Washington Square Park in Greenwich Village. I lived there for 14 years. And my aunt called it the slum because like the floors were shifted and, you know, it was an old building. And my parents said, you're never leaving New York, so you got to buy. It was a buyer's market then. And meaning that it was a lot cheaper for buyers than like future years. So I bought in 94. I've lived in Chelsea since. I have a pretty big 1-bedroom, you know, for Manhattan. I mean, you could have a whole house if you left Manhattan, you know.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, I mean, no,
So
that's because I think, you know, at least a lot of our students on this campus, you know, I may or may not have mentioned it to you. We're in Middletown, New York. So we're in Orange County. And I'm always surprised to find how many students have not been to the city, right? Or they've only been there, you know, maybe once or twice. And a lot of times, especially people outside of the state think, oh my God, if a person lives in Manhattan, they're rich because, you know, the rent is so ridiculous and to buy. But like you said, you got in when it was a buyer's market decades ago. And so that's how you're able to sustain living and working in New York City, right? But for somebody starting, you know, is that even possible anymore for a young person?
you need roommates and you'd have to pick a neighborhood that wasn't so fancy. Like, you know, there's some rundown neighborhoods that you can get it cheap. I started that way. Let's see. I did, you know, have a few apartments before that McDougal Street apartment. So when Avenue A, B, and C and D, they were like really dangerous. I mean, you could not go in there. You'd be mugged, raped, killed. It was really bad, the Lower East Side. And so I was rooming with 4 kids. Like, I mean, there were 4 of us, so 3 students and me. And a guy broke in with a gun, like, but it was real cheap, you know. Anyway, we didn't get hurt, but I got out of there. I lived uptown at Amsterdam, you know, like there are still, it's very expensive. So maybe the boroughs would be smarter.
Right.
But you can always, if you know what, if you really want something, you can find it. You really can. And if you got to dream big and aim high, like if you aim for the times and you don't get it, then you go down trying the lower things, you know? But aim high. Think of yourself, like a lot of us are insecure, like artistic types, we're weirdos, we're, you know, offbeat.
Right.
And we don't fit in anywhere. But you know what? Those are the people that are like obsessive and talented and just keep going. And
Right.
I had that I'll show you attitude, which helped me a lot.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm
Parsons, I forgot to say, one sec, I forgot to answer your question. Yeah, so Parsons School of Design is very well respected. It's at 13th Street and 5th Avenue. It's known for art, commercial art and fun art. And it's for the liberal arts part, it's with the new school, which is right across the street practically. And I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts. Now, I went to 4 colleges. I skipped 2 grades, went to college at 16. It's dumb to skip someone because it's a weird thing to be in with a whole group of people that know each other and don't know you. And then, at 16, I went to Boston University. Then, not to wait a semester, I went to the Art Institute of Boston, and then Parsons for a year. It was a great school, but I wanted to be a rock star. Took a 2-year leave of absence, then thought, oh my God, art is so much easier. So I went back, and then the last 2 years, and got a BFA. I lost a year of credits along the way by jumping around.
And what is a BFA for those who don't know?
Oh, sorry, Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Okay.
So there's a BA, which is liberal arts. And then, you know, sometimes I wish I'd gone for the journalism master's degree because, you know, those are the people that have books. A lot of people went that route and they have great jobs. But I've done all right for myself and I didn't really love school, so.
No, I would definitely say that you've done pretty
well. So let me get into this question then, because it kind of, we've been talking about New York City, and I know a lot of this stuff is, you know, we already know, we've talked about this a little bit, COVID has changed so much of everything, right? So some of these questions kind of feel like, well, we kind of know the answer to them, but I think some of them are still relevant because before COVID, it was a relevant question. And this is an example. So is it necessary to live in New York City to be a successful writer?
No way. Everything is digital. You know, you could be anywhere. You can work at home now, easier than ever. I worked in an office for a long time. This is like kind of a segue into how I went freelance. It was in New York, but I don't really think it matters. But it was, we did graphics for court cases. So there were very famous cases, like big cases, because the government were the prosecutors. It was like the John Gotti Windows trial and the Exxon Valdez oil spill. You can look this stuff up. And I worked there and it was very misogynistic atmosphere. And I'm 5'2". And a lot of the guys were about 6 feet tall and were very condescending, but I was getting paid more than that, like some of them. And then I found out I wasn't being equally paid to my level of colleagues. It was very misogynistic. You know, it was like the boss was a big fish in a little pond, you know? And so that was tough. So that would be like paying my dues. I knew it was like, I loved the work. I loved my immediate coworkers, couldn't stand the supervisor or the boss or the vice president of the company. But, you know, so I had a lot of problems with it. But people would say, why don't you just quit? But it was like really good pay. And I learned a lot. So finally, I decided I wanted to leave. And I asked, my boss didn't know that. And I asked him to pay for a class in Adobe Illustrator. We weren't computer then. This is like 1992, maybe 93. And we hadn't gone computer. These were older guys, you know, and they were the art directors. And I was an art director, but it was so, I knew it was like we were turning into dinosaurs. I was so much younger. I was 26 when I started there. And so I talked them into going computer. And the boss the king misogynist. He said, well, who's going to do this? I mean, you think Leo or David? I said, no, me. And he said, well, how fast can you learn this? Like, why is it worth my while to pay for your class?
Right.
And I just, I had chutzpah. I was just like, 2 months, give me 2 months. I'll take the class. In 2 months, I will be up and running. So at 1 month, he was 6'4". He was hovering over me. And that was like really hard, but I learned, and I learned fast. And when he hit hard times with money, he asked everybody to take a cut and pay. And I said, I'm sorry, Bill, I can't. And that's when I, it was like holding your nose and like diving out into a, huge ocean, a cold ocean. Right. But it worked out. I made more in that first year than I did at the high paying job. Isn't that amazing?
Well, it is amazing, but it also, I love, because I don't know if you've been able to do that, or maybe you would have, because you said you've always had the chutzpah, but because you had that additional knowledge, you took the course, you knew you were more marketable now, right? So, and now you have a skill that they didn't. So it was easier for you to say, hey, maybe I can, get out there and do this freelance thing on my own, because you had that skill set. Which is
one thing for new starters in the business world. So I got unemployment for a short time, and then I talked about my work a lot. I mean, I talk a lot anyway, as you can see, but I was in the garden of my building on the bench, and was talking with someone, and she happened to have a book publishing business that she ran out of her home in my building. And so she hired me and she trained me. So while the training was going on, I was on unemployment. I was seeking work. I didn't have the job. So when the unemployment work ran out, she had promised to start me on, a salary. It was low pay. She paid me by the hour. But that's why in that time, I worked for her for 2 years. She was like almost bipolar. She, would go from mood to mood and blame you for everything. And it was, so I paid my dues. It's not easy, but I knew what I wanted. I want to work at home,
No, I mean, I think that's a great message. And like I said, you were just a little bit before your time, because obviously now, a lot of people want to work from home or have had the opportunity due to COVID, mostly, largely, and now see that, like you said, you can do just as much, you can be productive, you can be successful. I mean, you don't have to be in any specific location now, whereas before, I think that was kind of the way you thought. I know in previous interviews, we've discussed that. If you want to be a writer, you move to New York. If you want to be an actor or you want to be in the film business, you move to LA. Like, these were just things that we believed, and all of that is for not anymore, right? You can be wherever you want to be.
The other thing is employers, believe me, they pay a lot of money for an office and office equipment. So they have incentive to hire freelancers because they don't want to pay health insurance, and a lot of them are not going to go back to offices because the price savings is like unbelievable when you don't have an office.
Right.
Well, you know what, that actually makes me think of another question, but I'm gonna wait. We're gonna take just a few minute break and then come back, but I'm gonna pick up on that because you mentioned something that I think a lot of, not just students, but people that are making big career changes, whether it's earlier in life, midlife, or later, when they decide to maybe go freelance, work for themselves, how do they afford it? How do you deal with not having, a big company paying your health insurance, and how do you deal with saving for retirement? And, some of those things that I think a lot of times we don't really talk about when you're freelance, and I think it's good information to at least start putting out there so people kind of know what they're getting into and that it is possible, right? But you really have to be in charge of your own stuff, and really be on top of stuff, right? So, I mean, that's what I'd like to talk about in just a few minutes. Is that okay?
About that, yes.
All right. So we'll just come back in a few minutes, Dorri. I'm just going to get some water, and I think we're going to make sure we have enough on the camera. Yeah. All right. We'll be back in just a few.
Okay.
We'll be here. We're not going anywhere, but if you want to take a break. I just want to make sure we're good. Did you say the battery stops at about 30? So you reset it already? Mhm. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, if that's the net, if it's 28 minutes, then maybe you need to break it like 25. I mean, but then the way you edit it, you don't even know it. So whatever's gonna work for you. Freezing in here today. Okay. That part is now be on Zoom. Okay. Should we take off the chat, the names in the chat too for the next part? Or you don't even want to see that when you, okay. Okay. Dorri, I feel like you need your own talk show.
You what?
I feel like you need your own talk show because you just had all these crazy experiences and just, you know.
Yeah, I've been trying to work out books. Like Sue pressured me for a long time about writing books. And I like short beginning, middle, end. So I'm much better at essays and articles and short stories. But I have been thinking about it and trying different things. And you know what? At this last event of Sue's, were you there? I don't think you were there. Friday?
How about when Tiffany was there just last week?
Yeah, this last week. Yeah. It was really good. I have the recording if you want it. I could send it to you.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it. It's just, I really wanted to go, but it's just not easy for me to get to the city, especially on a Friday night. I have my school age kids.
Yeah,
and I don't know if when I was going to the new school, I was commuting like 3 hours just one way from
Oh, wow.
So
you're dedicated. See, students have a good teacher. Well, what happened was there were two women with young adult books. One was they did different things. One was the editor and one was the something, I don't know, maybe senior editor, publisher, I don't know. Anyway, I have to listen to it again. But I thought, I think that's maybe the way I want to go, because that part of my life from 12 to like 17 is like the most like weird. Nobody could tell that story. It was like, I wrote 9 Lives for a Weeble. Did you ever see that? It won an award. It's about like, all my suicide attempts and everything. And it's really amazing that, Weebles, like it was a toy. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
Right, I do.
9 Lives for a Weeble. It's amazing. I'm still here, but I am. And there you go.
We definitely need to talk about that later offline or off camera, because about maybe the YA, because I've been looking at that too.
You'd be great at that. Yeah, because you have kids and you teach kids.
So many parts of my memoir that, like you said, take place in that coming of age time. That it could be more than an essay, and it could definitely be fictionalized, and then made into, for 14 or 15 or whatever, just somewhere in that time frame. But we can talk about that later. Because
we should, especially about Sue's event. That was really helpful.
Yeah, no, and Tiffany, we've interviewed Tiffany. Tiffany has been a guest, not just a guest, but she speaks to my summer academy students every summer for the EOP program that I work for. So she's quite familiar with our campus, but all virtually. So yeah, Tiffany's been great. So I'm really
she's so charismatic. Like there's like an aura around her of light. Oh, it's great hearing her.
I love Tiffany, and I'm sure I'll see her. I've been trying to get to the city. I'm like, okay, if I come down there, I got to see everybody in that night, right? That day. And I'm trying to get down there to see her too. So hopefully it works out. But all right, so I'll pick back up to where we were. So before we took the break, you had mentioned, about being a freelancer, and I know a lot of students and people making career changes and whatnot are concerned about being their own boss for the simple fact of health insurance and pensions and things that, depending on when you grew up, have been drilled into your head.
You get a good job, you have the benefits, you have the pension, that's what you do. But this generation, I think, that hasn't been drilled into their heads, right? They want to do what they want to do. They want to do it when they want to do it and all that. So how does a person, if they know that they want to be on this path to kind of working for themselves, how do they plan for having to have their own insurance and saving for their own retirement? Or how have you navigated that? What are you comfortable with sharing as far as that part of it is concerned?
One of the best things I learned, everybody, type this into your phone. If you want what they have, do what they do. And anybody who thinks it's easy, nothing is easy in life if you really want, especially in the creative areas and freelance. And it's worth it to research, talk to people who are doing it. Okay, so it was a different time, but when I had that hideous job, the job itself wasn't so bad, but the boss was horrible, and all the guys didn't know better. And so there was dental insurance, and I had a terrible car accident when I was 17. 3 people died. I was thrown from a pickup truck, landed on my face. Don't do that. Don't land on your face. And so it ruined my teeth. And so they look good, right? I've spent a lot of money on my teeth. So, but at that job, I got a lot of the dental work done. It was like $10,000 worth of work back then. We're talking 1988 till 8 years later, 1996. And maybe 94 it was that I left. Anyway, I was still freelancing for them. So that was my story. And then I was worried about that, when I left the company, like, what am I gonna do? So the woman who I was talking to in the garden, who was she published books for Teachers College Press and Lippincott, small books. I even won an award for one of the covers I did. But anyway, I asked her about that. And also my mom had worked at home as a writer, and it was a much different time. I mean, if you got an article, you paid $3,500, not $350. It was right. So different, and she's written 12 books and got paid a lot. Anyway, so, all the people that I ever talked to, I would try to store in my brain, what works and what doesn't. And so one thing is joining organizations. So I joined the Graphic Artists Guild when I was pursuing graphic arts, and they often have some health insurance programs where it's much cheaper. So you have to pay for the membership, but it ends up much cheaper than trying to get it on your own. And the other way is, if you're not making much, you can get on Medicaid. If you're working hard and you're just not, you have to prove that you're working.
Right.
So there's all different ways now, but and then some people end up making so much money, and then they choose better insurance, because the Medicaid, Medicare, all that stuff, it's like you get the bottom of the barrel, you're stuck waiting for hours. So people do I went from a job where I had fantastic insurance, and I had no idea the difference, and I never got dental insurance again. So it's a good thing I got a lot done then.
Well, but I think that's important though, because I mean, it's not necessarily, it's not like a deal breaker, I guess. If you want to pursue something, you kind of just have to know what comes with it, right? So you said the research part, talk to people doing it. Hey, how do you do this? How did you navigate this? And just really ask the questions, but it's not going to necessarily you're not going to say, okay, well, I can't do this. I can't pursue this career in media because they're not going to give me dental insurance, right? You find ways around it.
Got something. All of you should start looking into grants. There are a lot of grants, and they're for different things. And usually you have to, you know, show that you are working but don't have money, or that you have a big plan for some public space like a train station or something to raise consciousness, or, you know, you're going to write this book. I got grants over the years, and especially during COVID, you know, at the beginning, the work dried up so fast in COVID, but it's gone back. And then there was one other thing I was going to say about the insurance. Well,
How do people go about finding grants? Do they literally just start Googling grant for whatever they're interested in? Because I know here on campus, students, you know, you hear that a lot. Oh, there's money out there. There's scholarships out there. There's grants out there. You hear this, so you know that it's true, but where are they and how do you get them, you know?
young people like we're talking to, you should know how to Google anything.
Right.
And Google is the main search engine, and then there's others. And then a lot of people don't realize YouTube is the second biggest search engine. So you can type a full sentence into, you know, and learn anything. So, you know, like if you were going to ask me, like where you asked me that question, just say, how do I find grants?
Right.
How do I find, you know, financial aid? Or, and you do it, and you just keep looking, and you can type in shorter terms. You can type in, like if you do it in YouTube, you'll get videos, which is nice. If
Right.
you do it in Google itself, then you'll get links to videos and articles and websites. And always look, well, you probably know this, but always check the website thing before you click on it, you know.
Right, to make sure it's trusted.
Scammers, hackers, fishers, yeah.
And you know what, that just, I mean, I don't mean to sound however this might sound, but I mean, it's really not hard to sit at your computer and Google stuff, right? I mean, I remember when I was getting my undergraduate degree, there was books in the financial aid office, right, for scholarships that were like ginormous books, you know, and if you wanted money, you had to go in there and spend hours looking through these books to see who might be willing, you know, to give you money. And now you can sit on your phone, right, or and just, so I mean, it does take some time. I don't mean to minimize it, like it's still not work, but it's a lot easier, right, to just be able to Google specific terms and see what comes up, I guess.
Is libraries, public libraries. They won't have all the newest books, but you can try. You can say 2022 grants, 2020 financial aid, and some things will come up. Now I like audiobooks. You can get audiobooks from the library because I work all day and my eyes get sore, like just from staring at my computer. So I lie down. My dog wants attention anyway, so I lie down, I throw the ball. He loves fetch, very boring game, but I throw the ball, and then I listen to all kinds of books. If I want to write a certain kind of article, I listen to books about that topic, things like that. And I try to listen to recent things or bestsellers. Bestsellers can last a lifetime. So, you know, you could even older stuff. Like when you want to write about madness, go to Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart. And he like takes you into the mind of this madman. And, you know, like there's all kinds of books where you can just like feel like you're inside that world. So whatever you want to write about or anything.
Just do your research. Okay. Well, I want to ask you a couple of these questions here. And you've talked about this a little bit. So I'm gonna go to a funny question or funny answer. A student wanted to know who was your funniest interview?
I can tell you my worst interview.
Well, okay.
I couldn't believe it, but it was Ray Liotta. I mean, here's a guy on top of his career, you know, Goodfellas, all those movies. He's like such a, you know, you'd think he'd be grateful. You'd think he'd be humble. Oh no. So we usually get, press people get maybe 10 minutes for an A-list celebrity. And so that was back when it was like 6 people at what they call a round table. And we asked him a couple questions, and then he starts looking through his phone. And somebody said, "Oh, are you looking for an answer to that question?" And he goes, "No, man, I'm looking what time a movie starts because I'm meeting my friend."
During the interview.
That's so rude.
Right.
There's somebody, you think is great. Now, on the other hand, Michael K. Williams was so wonderful. I wish he didn't die, from so many shows. I'm sure.
I know who he is. Yeah.
He was so warm and so honest and open and vulnerable. And afterward, here's a tip. Whenever you want to interview a celebrity, you want to look for celebrities who are promoting their book or their foundation. Like Glenn Close has a foundation, Michael K. Williams had a foundation, because that's something they want publicity on. And then also PR people. And the PR, public relations, they are hired by movie companies or individually by the celebrity. Celebrities have agents, and it's like you learn it pretty quick. I learned it by accident because my friend did this for the Staten Island Advance paper. So he was the weather guy and the celebrity guy. So he always got a +1. So I was the +1. And we were just friends, and it was fun. And he was so blasé about stars, and I was like, so starstruck. Right. And then I did it so long. It takes a lot for me to be starstruck. It's kind of fun, but during COVID, I just haven't missed it that much. I thought I'd miss it more.
Right.
Did I answer that question or go on a tangent?
No, you did. No, you did. I mean, you gave us your worst interview instead of your funniest. And then
I'm trying to think of the funniest. I'll tell you when I think of it.
Okay. Well, the next part to that question was, who was the most famous?
Go to my website, everybody. I mean, not to promote me, but it's
there. Yeah.
Maybe I can show you on just hold it my.
You know what I'll do, Dorri? I'll post your website in the classroom because your bio is there. I'll post your website, and then also, is there a way for students to reach out to you by email if they?
Yes, Dorri@DorriOlds.com.
Okay.
Please, 2 R's though, but I think it'll get to me anyway. But I get tired of people spelling my name wrong.
Okay.
I should have spelled it DORI, but I didn't. I'm looking to see. All the stars. It's like hundreds, and they're all top stars. Not all, but mostly. So we're talking Steven Spielberg. Angela Bassett was so entertaining. She had all the charisma. Stars are different in real life sometimes, and also because none of them want to do press events. They want to act. They don't want to, it's boring to them, and they have to repeat themselves. But it's part of their movie contracts or TV contracts, so they have to do it. So you don't get them at their best. Julianne Moore, total professional. I used to love Susan Sarandon, but sorry to talk politics, but when she put down Hillary Clinton, before when Hillary Clinton was running,
right,
she put her down, and I just wanted to smack her. I don't like her anymore. But let's see if I can find that. If you type in Dorri Olds celebrities,
Okay.
you'll get there.
Yeah, we'll have them look that up. I mean, you gave some good names. I definitely wanted to ask this question though, Dorri, because we mentioned it in your bio, and because a lot of the students that will watch this video are pursuing careers in media. So talk to us about what is an IMDb page and why is it significant to have?
I didn't hear what?
IMDb, you mentioned that.
Oh, that's the movie database.
Okay.
So why is that significant?
I was asked to be in a documentary. The name of the documentary is very unfortunate. It was like the word sex was in there, and it wasn't really about that. It was about New York City in different decades. And it was an honor because one of my very successful professors at Parsons is also in it. And I got my friend Alex Miller into it. And we all talk about New York City. And so I don't know why he made that the title, but it's not about that. And anyway, so, but it's thrilling to have my own IMDb page because I've been obsessed with movies and celebrities my whole life. I don't know. A lot of people don't think there's any big deal. And, but I was always like, they seem so magical and like fantastical. And a lot of them are. I mean, they're at the top of their fields with this amazing talent. My father, who met a lot of them, a lot of stars in radio, he met, you know, he would say, you don't know what you're wishing for. Like, first of all, you can't want to be a celebrity. You have to want to be a singer or a guitar player or this or that. But I said, no, I want to be a celebrity. He said, why? And I said, I want people to go, Dorri, Dorri. I was, you know, very young, 12 maybe. And, and he said, you don't understand what celebrity is. These are people who are obsessed. And the only thing they want to do is what they want to do. And everything else suffers. So like their marriages suffer, you know, and he said a lot of them aren't nice people. James Brown is very fascinating, great dancer, fun, you know, trailblazer, but he beat his wife, you know. He said they're not also always nice people.
Right.
That was interesting about celebrities. It's good to research a celebrity before you go to the interview, and definitely have something like know about the movie if you haven't, or the book. If you haven't gotten a chance to read the book or see the movie, read reviews about it before you go interview a celebrity, because don't ask like the dumbest questions. They get so annoyed. If you look and they've already answered that question in the press even once, come up with something else, you know, make it memorable.
Well, I mean, and it's the same along the lines of when you're writing for a publication, don't pitch something that they just, you know, published, or even something that they've published, you know, in the past couple of years. Like, I think the overwhelming message in a lot of this is do your research, you know what I mean? Just do your research. Don't go in just half-ass, you know, with something, show that you're interested, because you want people to take an interest in you, right? So you have to show that initial interest is kind of what I think one of the overall messages.
One thing you should never, ever do is write directly to public relations person or a celebrity agent or an editor of a magazine or outlet. Don't ever write, I'd love to write about celebrities. Here's my email. Like, don't. You have to, even if you have to bullshit, just say you know what you're doing, and be very specific. Say, I'd like to interview Michael K. Williams about his foundation, blah, blah, blah. And I have access to him. And then when you land, you have to have an outlet where you're going to publish the piece. So before you're likely to get the A-list stars. So get an outlet that will always let you publish stuff, even if it's free at the beginning. And, you know, I don't know, I'm sure if you just constantly talk about what you're after, you'll meet people. I mean, on Zoom now, but, you know, eventually we'll get back to events. I went to 2 public events this week for the first time in 2 years. It was like, oh my God, people.
I think that's really good advice, Dorri. And I mean, we could probably, you know, end on that note, because it's almost like speaking what you want into existence, right? Or speaking, you know, what you know or what your interests are. So the more you talk about those things will come to you. And I think that's a great message.
I do want to tell you though, this has been really, really fun. Like, I mean, I've always admired you. You know, like I came to know you through your piece, you know, in the New York Times. But I mean, now we're connected on social media and, you know, have so many friends in common. But I mean, I've always found you to be so just fun. I just like talking to you. So this was really enjoyable. I think the students and whoever watches the video of the interview will get a lot out of it. And I'm also going to make sure that they have a way to get in touch with you if they'd like to, and also follow your work and your career on social media. And hopefully we can sit down again and do this, you know, at another time. Because I did really want to get into a few more of the essays in particular, and some of the advocacy work. But I think for the purposes of this interview, I think it was fine to not delve into that. But I did
want to give that, you know, warning, you know, if you will, in the beginning, in the event that we did. So hopefully we can talk again.
When your students write to me, they need to put like in solid caps, Sharisse, or you know, because I have so much spam, and it's just like I miss a lot of emails that way. So
I'll put that in the Blackboard, you know, for them to put that in the subject so that you know it's they're coming.
and I'll see it.